Christ is risen. Truly he is risen. Over the next few days, we'll be bringing you something a little different here on Jordanville Readings. On May 2nd through 4th, we were honored to host Professor Jean-Claude Larchet at Holy Trinity Monastery. Dr. Larchet is a French convert to the faith and one of the most well-known living Orthodox authors and patrologists, that is, scholar of the writings of the Holy Fathers. He graciously took some time during his visit to sit down with us and talk about his life as an Orthodox Christian, his studies and writings, and especially the books he has published recently under the banner of Holy Trinity Publications. We'll bring you that conversation in full over the next several episodes of Jordanville Readings. But it's worth mentioning here that Dr. Larchet's latest book to appear in English will be officially published in just a few days, on May 17th. It's called The Spiritual Roots of the Ecological Crisis, and in it, Professor Larchet finds the roots of the global ecological crisis in a rejection of a truly Christian cosmology, and proposes principles and actions deeply rooted in his Christian ethos that would allow mankind to restore and reinvigorate its relationship with nature. The book is available now in both paperback and digital formats wherever books are sold. With that, here's part one of our conversation with Professor Jean-Claude Larchet.
Good morning. I'm very pleased today to be sitting with Professor Jean-Claude Larchet from France. I am Nicholas Chapman, the director of Holy Trinity Publications, and it has been our privilege and joy to publish several of Dr. Larchet's books in the past few years, and now we are equally privileged to have him with us at Holy Trinity Monastery today. So let us begin. And Professor Larchet, couldn't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are from, and how you come to be a member of the Orthodox Church?
I am French, and I was educated in a Catholic family. I was a Catholic practicant till my 20s, and I discovered Orthodoxy through the Church Fathers during my philosophic studies in the university, because I had to do work on Dionysius the Areopagite, and I had the obligation to read other church fathers connected with him, and at the same occasion I had also to read Orthodox commentators, and especially Vladimir Lossky. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered a way of making theology very different from the way I knew through the scholastic and modern Catholic theology. More existential way to make theology connected with spiritual life, spiritual mind, with also liturgic life. And this, for me, was a real discovery. I was very fascinated by this connection between theology and the true life. And I was also at the same time very interested by hesychast spirituality, and especially by Jesus Prior. It was at this time something that interested many people. There were many readers for The Way of a Pilgrim and the Philokalia. We have a little Philokalia in French edition. And there was, in general, in society, a great interest for spirituality. Mm-hmm. There is no such interest now. But the people were saturated with society of consummation and were looking for something else. and I discovered this special Orthodox spirituality, and was also fascinating by the ability of Orthodox spirituality to include all the life and each act and each thought in the existence.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same time, when I was Catholic, I had experienced another way, because in Catholicism or in Protestantism, the life is cut in different moments. There are spiritual or liturgical moments on the Sunday, especially some strong times in the day, in the morning or in the evening for prayer, but all the day, all the life was not included in spirituality, and spirituality not included in the life. So this double discovery was for me very important, and I at the first time I had no contact with the Orthodox Church, because I was living in the country where there was no Orthodox Church. I had no contact, but I need soon to get a contact, and I had the contact through who became my spiritual father in Paris, Father Sergius.
And how did you meet Father? We will talk about your book about Father Sergius, but how did you meet him to begin with?
So being very interested in Jesus prayer and in Orthodox spirituality, I wanted to get a true and good spiritual father for that, to learn the practice, and I asked to an Orthodox theologian who I knew because he had been living sometimes in the town where I make my studies in philosophy. I contacted him, and I asked him who is now in France or in Europe the best spiritual father. And he told me there are three prominent spiritual fathers. There is Father Sophrony in Essex, Metropolitan Anthony. At that time, he was very specialized in Jesus prayer, had written many articles and books on this prayer. And the third one is a monk who is very poor, very simple, very humble. And as I was making at that time philosophical studies and involved in most of time in complicated books and thoughts, I thought that the better way for me would be to go to this simple and humble man, and because I thought that to learn something, the best would be to have someone who would be the contrary of what I am. I was. Not an intellectual, but someone who was in practice, involving in actual spiritual life, and so I have been in Paris. I was in contact with him. The contact was in the first time rather difficult, because he was so humble that he didn't want to be a spiritual father. He didn't take a spiritual son. He considered himself as not having the ability for that. But I insisted, and he took me as a spiritual child. But he was a great spiritual father at this time. For example, he was the spiritual father of Nikolai Berdyaev in the last years of his life in France. He was also the spiritual father of Vladimir Lossky, the famous Russian Orthodox theologian. And he was what was fascinating in him that he was very, very humble, very charismatic. He had a special gift, who was to read in the heart. He was able to know your secret and unmanifest thoughts, and not to say immediately what you were, or to judge you, but in order to give you a good orientation through this knowing he had of yourself.
And he was a priest and a monk, or
he
just
was
a monk?
a Yarrow monk, and he had both a parish in the region of Paris, in Vanves, and he was and the hegumen of a small skit in the region of Paris, in the south of Paris, with 3 monks. We had an hesychast life. They was living in small and poor wood houses in a forest. And then I had regular contact with him, and I learned from him very much. And my book on him, that is now for a long time translated into English, reproduces many advices he gave me, because at each time I spoke with him, I wrote what he said to me, and at the time when he died, I wanted to present both his life, his spiritual personality, and to give these advices he gave to me, who are also very useful for other people, because they concern the spiritual life in all its various aspects.
And where, just in briefly, as you wrote his biography, where had he come? Was he a Russian, or where did he come from to Paris?
He came in Paris with his family, I think, in a few after the Russian Revolution in 1917. His family was a noble family. From the side of his father, all his ancestors were general in the Russian army. One of them was a general who fought against Napoleon, and all were general. And in the side, and his father was a general of the Tsar's guard. He was very near of the imperial family. We have later addressed by the Tsarin to his mother, and so on. And from the side of his mother, his grandfather was ambassador of Russia in various countries like United States, Japan, and also other countries. And his foregrandfather was an astronomer of the Struve family, was the founder of the Observatory of St. Petersburg. And And but when they came in France, they were very poor, as many Russian refugees of noble origin. And he has to work at first for his family, and became a monk only when he was 40. But from the first year he was a monk, he was already famous because he was deeply engaged in a deep practice of hesychast spirituality, and was it's something very special. Was a very saint, a very holy man. I think he will be canonized in some years, but now it's not the time, because we have unfortunately some administrative bishop who are not very much interested in spirituality. But the time will come surely. Nice. Because the book was translated in many languages. For example, in Russia, the first edition was published in 20,000 copies, and there was a second edition with 10,000 copies, and it was a great success also in Greece, in Romania, in Italy, in Germany, and in many other Germany and many other countries, and it is very known, especially in Greece. In many monasteries they use the book, and the book helped through the advices it gives. Many useful for many faithfuls.
Very good. And altogether you have written 35 books.
Yes.
On many different subjects, but would you say there is something which ties together all of these books that you have written, if you like, the inner core of your writing?
Yes, I began to write on the theme of illness. I make my dissertation in philosophy on the topic of spiritual illness, and that gave the big book, now translated also in many languages, Therapeutic of Spiritual Illnesses, translated in English, in Russian, in Polish, in Spanish, in Italian language, and in Romanian, and many other languages. It's, I think, my best book. And my intention in this book was to present the Christian salvation in a new way, not a juridic one as useful, but salvation as a therapy of the fallen man. And that was very traditional. I was struck when I read the Fathers, because I began by a large reading of the Fathers, that they use in permanently comparison with medical approach. They consider Christ as a physician, and Christian spirituality as able to heal not only the mind, but the soul and the body, even the body. And I gave a systematic presentation of this approach. And after having made this book, which took me 8 years of preparation, because there are more than 10,000 quotations of the Father in it. It was a big work. I wrote more little books on illness, one on illnesses of the body, second one on the illness, mental disorders, and after that I was interested to study also pain. What is the meaning of pain, the origin, the meaning, how do we use pain in a profitable way? Is the pain coming from God for some pedagogical goal, or is it something coming from as a consequence of the sin, and so on? And after that, I wanted to study also death, connected with illness and suffering.
That was part one of our conversation with noted French Orthodox patrologist and author Professor Jean-Claude Larchet. In our next episode, Dr. Larchet discusses his groundbreaking study, Life After Death, According to the Orthodox Tradition, which is now available in its second edition from Holy Trinity Publications. Thank you for listening. Христос воскресе! Воистину воскресе!